everybody. Welcome to Criterion Watch. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm here with...
Paul A. Presenza knows the Muko.
All right. So we're here to talk about The Seven Samurai,
Yes.
which I had never seen before recently.
Fabulous.
Even I've heard great things about it. Nobody's ever said, "Oh man, I hate Seven Samurai." Like, that movie is just so awful. Everybody has always said, "You have to see this movie. This movie is amazing. This movie is, And I'll say, I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was honestly, I was not sure what I would what I was gonna think about when I was gonna watch it, because you think samurai movie, you think just a bunch of samurais walking around. I had no idea what they were gonna do.
Just
But
walking around.
I like the story. The storyline is really good.
Yeah.
Basically, these 6 samurai are hired, and they need another one to protect this farm from these bandits that keep kind of stealing their stuff and doing a lot of unnecessarily bad things to their village. So they hire these people, and one of the people, what's his name?
Kikuchio?
Kikuchio. I loved him. He was my favorite
he's
character.
great.
And he's like the main guy, pretty much. Anyway, but he, and I didn't know he was the main guy when I first watched it, because when you first watch it, I don't know any of these actors. I don't know who they are. I probably still wouldn't be able to tell them from a hole in the ground, but I loved them. I loved every single person in it. They're all some sort of character. They brought something new to it. It was all, and you can kind of see a lot of influences, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit throughout it. But there's a lot of influences from other filmmakers and other people. But anyway, yeah, it's basically they have to protect them, and then there's the first act is them coming there. The second act is them is them forming this forming this group, preparing for everything. Then the third act is the big battle, at the end. So this movie inspired Magnificent Seven, and I think even inspired some stuff from George Lucas, who claims this is his favorite Akira Kurosawa movie, even though he ripped off Hidden Fortress for Star
Among
Wars,
others, yeah.
among others. So so there you go. But anyway, I'm gonna let Paul talk about it a little bit more, and then I'll kind of weigh in on my thoughts afterwards. But he's gonna go. He's got a lot of notes, so
Yeah.
let him take it away.
So yeah, this has been one of my favorite movies of all time for a long time. Akira Kurosawa is, aside from Stanley Kubrick, is probably my favorite director. You might have a director who makes a masterpiece in the course of his career. Just about all of Kurosawa's movies are masterpieces, and of all of them, Seven Samurai is probably his best. It's just absolutely fabulous. It's an epic, and it's actually sprawling in scope, and it's fabulous. The way to really sort of understand this film is to sort of understand the world that it's set in. So I did a little research, and I wrote some stuff down, and I'm just not good at memorizing things, so I thought it'd be better if I just kind of read it off to you a little bit. So Seven Samurai is a samurai movie, and it's set in 1586. This is 16th century feudal Japan, which is in Japanese history. It's Sengoku, which is the age of the warring states. So what is going on is right now, everybody is kind of sort of jockeying for position to be the next shogun. And because of that, you have all these different parties, I guess you would call them the daimyo, who are warring against each other, trying to get the upper hand, and they are utilizing the samurai as the knights of their era to make war on each other and to destroy farms and to weaken their opponents and all that sort of thing. So this is kind of like the classic time in Japanese history when all this was going on. The great Code of Bushido was written at this time for these samurai, and the thing about it is that the movie Seven Samurai is about these Ronin samurai, and what Ronin are they're masterless samurai who have lost their master. Now, in the Code of Bushido, you see, if you were to lose your master, you were supposed to commit suicide. So the fact that these samurai are out running around, still alive, doing things, is considered a shameful thing. So during the film, you see the villagers and the farmers talk about samurais on the run. And what that means is that, you know, these were samurai who left a battle, who ran off, and rather than committing suicide, didn't do that. So in Japanese feudal society, they were fair game. So if the farmers could gang up and kill them and take their stuff, they would, because the armor and the weapons, and if they had any money on them, were valuable. And just like any time else, if you were just a farmer in that period and you had no money, this was just a way to get some extra for yourselves. So there's a lot going on about the society at the time as well. The sort of difference between the warrior class and the working class. And how they're actually both end up being used as pawns by the elites of the period, which is why at the end of the film, not Toshiro Mifune, the other guy, his character says, you know, as usual, we lost again, even though they're the actual winners. They actually walk away from it, but they still lose because they have not improved their situation, because they're Ronin, they're masterless samurai, and they're just being used as tools. That's their fate. So it's,
well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Well, part of this is because when I went to grad school the first time around in Temple University, Joan Mellon was one of my professors there, and she wrote the book on Akira Kurosawa's movies and Seven Samurai in general. So I got a lot of good stuff from her, and her books are fabulous. And I unfortunately have them buried at my house. I was going to dig them out and bring them in and show them to you because there's lots of great information on there. But I got to excavate my closet, and they're in there someplace. But so yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of these Ronin, you've got the two sides there. You've got the part like Toshiro Mifune and their group who are going off and doing what they can to survive, and then you've got the bandits. Because those were also Ronin. They had nothing else to do. They had no other way of making a living, so they turned to banditry. And of course, they're going to prey on the weaker, and that's going to be the farmers. And traditionally, they could just simply go in, kill the farmers, and take their stuff, or just force them to give them their food, and then they would come back, and they would just kind of go around from group to group. And so finally, the one group says, you know, we've had enough of this. We're gonna just hire a bunch of hungry samurai. And that was great. That one part about the old man where they go to him, they say, you know, and I've never heard of hiring samurai before. What do you think we should do, grandfather? And he's like, find hungry samurai. And it's the perfect thing. He's like, yeah, they may be full of honor, but these guys are masterless. They ran away. They should have committed suicide. So they're gonna be looking for a way to earn some money, and this it's better than nothing.
But the Shiri Mifune's character of God, I keep forgetting his name.
Kikuchiyo.
Kikuchiyo. He's not a real samurai, though, right?
No, and that's the other thing too. You're going to have people, and I think this is also brought up in the film. You're going to have people who are sort of samurai wannabes, and that's really what he is. And it comes out during the course of the film that he was just a farmer's son. And as a matter of fact, the one little kid who gets rescued from the burning mill house, Kikuchiyo grabs me and says, yes, I had that was my fate. This was me as a baby. So he, you know, not only is he a farmer's son, but he lost his family, so he couldn't even farm. So he's been wandering around trying to find a better life for himself too, and he fashions himself to be a samurai. He's got the sword, he's got some armor, he manages to get one of those little government scrolls that supposedly has his name listed in all of the families, and of course it's just something he grabbed from someone else, and he's masquerading, so it's not his name. He doesn't even know what his real name is. He says he forgets, and so
it's funny because he has what was his name? His name is Kikuchiyo, right?
Right.
Which actually means
seventh of something, I forget.
Oh, I thought it was a girl's name or something.
Well, I remember they kept going your ninth or something. Keep it up, 9. They keep saying, making fun of him, but they ended up giving him that name anyway because they decided that it suited him.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I will just say real quick before you get into some more history of it. My favorite scene in that whole movie was when they were testing the samurais to see if they were good samurais, and Kikuchiyo comes in drunk and gets his ass whooped, And then they said, they're like, oh, good samurai would, would have been able to handle that. And he's like, what is wrong with you people?
Right. Well, and it's brilliant because they use that as a way to sort of also show the individual's personality. Like the first guy they bring in there, he sees what's going on, but he gets angry and he's pissed off and he yells at them and he just storms off and leaves and he's very haughty. And when they try it again, they bring in, I forget the guy's name, but he's kind of like the happier guy. And he just kind of laughs and says, ah, ha, ha, no jokes here, please. But he can figure it out too. And a poor Kikucho comes in and he's drunk as a skunk. They just kind of drag him in. And the guy just clunks him right on the head and he doesn't even have a chance to say or do anything. Because he's not a samurai. He's never been trained. So it's just funny. And then he just sits there rubbing his head.
It's so cartoonish, but it's so funny.
Funny though, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
So the movie really is set in the background of all of this social upheaval that's going on at the time. This sort of near constant military conflict that was plaguing the period, which followed the collapse of the Ashikaga shogunate in 1486, and this pretty much is the norm up until about 1600. So that's why they call it the war or the age of warring states, because this kind of went on and on and on. So all of this is going on, and it really informs what's going on with the story. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the actors, because this is also kind of a watershed moment for Akira Kurosawa films. Those of you who are Kurosawa films know that this movie is kind of a sort of a passing of the torch, because previously in most of his films, Takahashi Shimura, who was the older guy, the guy who played the older samurai who disguises himself as a monk, he was kind of like the main guy. And Toshiro Mifune, who played Kikucho, was the young up-and-coming actor. So in this film, there you can see the torch kind of passing from one to the other.
That's cool.
They both ended up doing a lot of films. Takahashi ended up making 21 movies for Akira Kurosawa, and I believe Toshiro Mifune made 14, although their relationship sours towards the end, and I think for like 20 years they didn't talk for a while. There was some bad going back and forth, although they finally had a reconciliation towards the end, which is cool. But yeah, so Shimura he was kind of known for being that sort of stoic, wise samurai who, and whether he's playing a samurai, or whether he was playing a detective or a cop, he was that sort of quiet, reserved, stoic guy who is wise and who can understand what's going on and is very smart. He's very cerebral, whereas Mifune comes in and he's like the young tiger. He's bursting with energy. He can't contain himself. He's physical. He wants to do things. And, it's a passing of the torch from one actor to the other, but it's also a passing of the torch of one style of hero from one to the other as well. So that makes it pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to unpack and a lot going on just when you look at Seven Samurai in the lens of all of Kurosawa's movies. And, there are some who still think that Rashomon is better than Seven Samurai. I'd say they're about equal, but like I said, Kurosawa has made so many masterpieces. It's really, really difficult to just say this is the one. But personally, Seven Samurai will always be my favorite, because the fact that it's so epic in scope, and yet it still manages to inject a lot of humor into it, and universal humor too. It's not just something where you're going to look at it and say, oh, well, the Japanese think this is funny, but nobody else does. There's a lot of humor in the movie too.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of humor in it.
I love when, Kikucho thinks he's going to be able to ride Yoei's old horse, and poor Yoei, who's like, he's like the coward, the sort of the sniveling little coward of the whole group. But he's, you kind of feel bad for him. He's always crying. You feel bad, and he's got this old horse. And they're like, if you hurt his horse, you're going to make him cry. He's like, I know what I'm doing, and he gets on the horse, and for a little bit, he's kind of riding him, and then he goes behind like a bush or a barn, and then you see him coming out, and the horse is running off, and Kikucho's rubbing his backside, chasing him, like he's just yelling at the horse. I think he throws a few things at him. And
the humor was
cute.
Surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I thought this movie was like a serious film throughout the whole movie. Like I thought it was that's what it was gonna be, and that I was gonna be kind of I thought I was gonna be bored, honestly. I mean, 3 hours and a half or something. Like this is a long movie. It's
Right.
hard to kind of you know. I almost didn't even. I don't even think I sat through it in one sitting. I tried, but I had a lot of stuff to get done and things like that. And that's the problem with movies these days is. I mean, movies are still long, you know, or whatever. I mean, just finding one that's an hour and a half is tough, you know. And so things are at least 2 hours, if not 3 hours nowadays. You know, they want epics.
But they're not making them on anywhere near the same level of competence that Seven Samurai is, unfortunately. But I mean, you know, Kurosawa and Kubrick and some of the really, really great directors understand that the best drama is always going to have some comedy in there to help, relieve the tension. I mean, that goes back to Shakespearean times, you know, where he would always include comic elements in his drama, because you got to have that tension and release, tension and release, tension and release. It really all goes all the way back to the Greeks and Romans when they were writing their dramas as well. But yeah, there's a lots of humor, and what's great about it is, like I said, is that he makes it universal. Any little kid's gonna be able to look at that and see, you know, like the other part where he falls off the horse and then he goes running after. He's like, "Please forgive me, you know, I didn't mean it," because he was calling him, you know, a terrible horse for kicking him off. I mean, it's just funny the way he does it.
It's just, yeah.
And because it's Mifune, he's giving it all. So, you know, I mean,
he was the comic relief.
yeah, he's comic relief, but he's also, you know, he's also the sort of bittersweet, you know, part as well.
He's got a heart.
Yeah.
Like he's the Rudy of the movie.
He's the tragic element, because his life is really more tragic than all of those, except for maybe the one guy, again, I can't remember the names, but the guy who lost his wife and then finds her.
Right.
That guy's very interesting, because, you know, he kind of comes off as a hard ass at first, and yet you come to find out why, and then towards the end, he's actually becomes sort of the de facto leader of the village when everything is done and the samurai have to go off their own way, and the old grandfather's dead, but he's the one leading the rice planters as they plant their rice and their
The rice planters.
So, story-wise and acting-wise, that's that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the cinematography. Now, Akira Kurosawa is one of those directors, like Stanley Kubrick, who is extremely exact in the way he wants to present his film to the world. I mean, he will wait. He's known for waiting for weeks to get the exact shot that he wants. If he's
Like
trying
lighting.
light or the sun, you know, I mean, from what I understand, people didn't really ever show shots of the sun the way that was done before, because they said you're not going to be able to see it right. You're gonna, you know, it's gonna white out everything on the screen, and no one's going to be able to see it. And he's like, I know what I want, and he waited forever, how long it took for him to get exactly what he wanted. And you know, you can see that all over the place. It's very similar to, if you're familiar with anything related to Japanese art, you know, whether it's making the exact same brush strokes for their artwork, for their calligraphy, or for the tea service, where everything has to be perfectly exact, or anything like that. You know, that whole Japanese ethos of perfection goes right through all of Kurosawa's films. And so, you know, it's no different with the cinematography. Everything just looks gorgeous. There's he shoots in extreme depth so that there's nothing flat. There's it seems very, very realistic. You can see everything in the foreground and see all kinds of stuff in the background. It just opens up the world, so you're not just looking at it like a flat two-dimensional play or two-dimensional book or something. Everything looks real, and it looks three-dimensional and looks deep, and it's just a beautifully shot film. And another thing that a lot of folks don't know is that Kurosawa was also a fabulous editor. He was doing the editing at the time with the dailies. So he would shoot all this stuff during the day, and then at night he would take it back and he would start editing scenes right then and there. And you know, back in the 50s, nobody was doing that. I mean, that's almost unheard of. So yeah, it's just you know, a marvelous testament to the fact that, you know, he knew exactly what it is he wanted every single moment of every single bit of his movies, and especially Seven Samurai. It's just it's what I mean when I say it's epic in scope, in every possible way. So, who you preferred Toshiro Mifune's character most of all?
It's funny because yeah, I mean he's the one you really kind of put a lot of focus on in the movie. It's somebody who I feel like gets a lot of you know what I mean, like a lot of attention and stuff, as opposed to you know, a lot of the other characters, a lot of them, you know, kind of come and go or whatever, but you know, he kind of is. He's kind of the glue that keeps the whole thing together. Because at first, you're like, oh man, this guy's coming in, he can't do anything.
He's kind of an odd sock.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he kind of becomes this, you know, like he becomes this hero.
Yeah,
in a
well,
way.
it's the pivotal scene is when they arrive at the village, and all the villagers are freaking out and they're hiding because they're afraid because they're samurai. And the samurai are insulted. They're like, hey, we've come here to save your asses. Why don't you at least come out and greet us? How are we supposed to take this? And then Kikuchio knows, because he's grown up in this situation, he knows they're just a bunch of frightened farmers. And he goes up and he finds their little alarm system. He gets them and he starts banging it. And then they all come running around. And he's like, oh, you're afraid now? You're saying, save us, save us, save us. Well, and then he kind of shames them. Because that's the other thing is, you know, Japanese culture is a shame culture. So there's a lot of this sort of shame stuff going on that happens in the film. That's one of the sort of East-West divides that some people may not understand. That happens with the young samurai and the girl, where they get, you know, they fall in love, but because of their social differences, they can't really do that, but of course they do, and then they are shamed into that. Although, again, even they get their little moments of comedy, too. You know, I love when, you know, she's initially, you know, the father is afraid that the samurai are going to come and have their way with her. So he grabs the poor girl and cuts all her hair off, which is a horrible scene. The poor girl.
Poor girl. Yeah.
And even so, it's kind of like, yeah, I still think she's a girl, but that's all right.
Yeah, you can still tell she was a girl.
You let it go, because she's really pretty. But anyway, so she's off hiding in the woods, and the young samurai has been following the other guys around, and he gets infatuated with the flowers, and he's checking them out, and they're like, he's just a kid, just let him go. And he's out there gathering flowers, and then he finds her there, and she's like, hey, you're supposed to be back there drilling with all the others. What a bad time to be picking flowers. And he's got a bunch of flowers in his hand. He's like, he just throws it down, because he's doing the exact same thing. This is
He
really
was the one
funny.
who falls in love with her, right?
Yeah.
And there's like, it was so weird. There's like a scene that just made me
know
laugh.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I know. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Exactly. But like, there's a scene where they're like out in the woods together. Like she wants to I think she wants to have sex with them or something.
I think she thinks that it's expected, and
right.
that, you know,
that he'll have his way with her. Or
Right,
something.
right.
And then he's like. He's such a scared, like,
He's a milk
you know,
toast.
yeah, and he's so scared of her and stuff, and so she's like, you're not really like a samurai or something like that. It's just like, you're not a real man.
Well, and you know, of course, the thing is, if they have a very different idea of what samurai is.
Right.
They think, because to them, that's what samurai do. They go around and they
take
just
what
take
they
what they
want.
want. Whereas for him, it's no. There's a code we live by, and we don't do things to dishonor people, especially people who
We
are
like.
weaker and who we are supposed to be protecting.
Yeah.
But he can't really say that because he's just a kid. He doesn't know how to say that. So instead, he's just horrified that she's doing this. So he's like,
Oh my God, he has like that face.
But
Oh.
it's this great awkward moment. But, you know, fortunately, Kurosawa saves us from that awkward moment, because that's right at the time where they both hear horses and they're all like, shit, the bandits are right there. We got to shut up and figure this out and move along.
Exactly.
Brilliant scene.
I know. It was
So
such a
great.
great. It was so great. That scene just cracked me up, because like I was just like, see, once again, this goes back to my expectations of this movie. I did not at all expect this movie to be what it was.
Right.
Here's the thing. I was told by millions of people, you're gonna love this movie. You're gonna love this movie. And every time I hear that, I always have the thing in my back of my head saying, nah, probably not. Like, you know, because too many people like it. They're just,
God forbid.
Oh, I know, but like when too many people like something, like say too many people like a Hollywood movie that's out now, you know, they're like, oh, you're gonna like A Quiet Place, you know, or whatever, right? Great movie, loved it, but in my back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna live up to the expectations that I might hold if I hear all these things. So in the back of my mind, I automatically think I'm not gonna like this movie. That it's not gonna be what I think it's gonna be, and it's gonna be slow and boring or whatever. Because you know he likes Wes Anderson movies, so I can't exactly agree with everything he has to say. But
Yeah, and not that much, but you know, and part of the thing is that, you know, I mean, I grew up watching Kurosawa films from an early age because I was lucky, and in the place where I grew up, they were showing them on PBS all the time. So by the time I was a teenager, I had already seen 24 of Akira Kurosawa's films. So I already knew I loved Kurosawa. I loved everything there. They were just absolutely fascinating. And that scene we just discussed is a perfect emblem of how Akira Kurosawa makes his films.
Exactly.
He will take a small scene that doesn't look like it's much, and yet the utility of it is fabulous. It's doing so much stuff with that one scene, and yet it's not just a little tiny comedic scene. It does so much for the rest of the film, and it connects so many things going on. It's really fabulous, and that's typical of the way he is. There are no throwaway scenes when it comes to Akira Kurosawa, and that's just a marvel, So yeah, and all I can tell you is I'm serious when I say he has more than one masterpiece. Most of, if not all of his movies are masterpieces. They're absolutely fabulous films. Each and of every one really deserves to be seen on its own merit. They're just fabulous.
All right,
Can't say enough.
I think we talked a good amount about this movie. I think we will probably retouch on it at some point when I've watched it again, and because it's a movie that
you can just say so
needs
much.
multiple viewings.
Right.
Because there's so much you can talk about. There's so much other people have already said in different podcasts and or video casts. So I don't think we're adding a lot to it.
Right.
too
I mean,
much. We're just bringing it.
There's just so much to say about it. I mean, one of the things I did want to mention, though, when you talk about its influences, in addition to influencing other films, I believe this is the first film that has that whole trope of here's the hero, and now I'm going to get a whole bunch of other heroes, and we're all going to get together, and we're all going to go solve this problem.
Yeah, because if
That's
you think
really
about
the
it,
first one that does that.
this movie came out the 50s, and then after that in the 60s or so, you had like the Dirty Dozen, you had
Right.
Magnificent Seven, obviously, you had a bunch of war movies, The Wild Bunch, a bunch of war movies where it wasn't just one guy. I mean, there might be a lead actor, but there was an ensemble cast
Right.
of people that and obviously this movie had a bunch of them. I think you're about to say some of the people's names and stuff like that, right?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought you were doing with the card.
No, I'm just making sure I didn't leave anything out. There's a lot I could say, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's already almost a half hour into this thing, so
that's okay.
I think that we're gonna keep this at about a half hour shows. So we're gonna pretty much do our reviews of something. Sometimes we're gonna probably one time we'll watch or not just one time, but more than that, we'll watch a movie, a Criterion movie here, then do a video right after.
I guess the only other thing I wanted to say is, as far as the Criterion version of this film, it looked absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's cleaned up. It's just unbelievable. It's got all kinds of great extras in it. If you're gonna have a version of it, you may as well get the Criterion version. You may as well get the Blu-ray too, because it just looked beautiful. I have the old Criterion CD version, but because it was so big and because there's so much going on and so many extras, they had to break it into 2 DVDs, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But the Blu-ray was just one.
Yeah.
And it's all contained there, and I believe
All
there's
the
even
special features
even more
are,
extras.
Yeah, are in the second one.
So as far as the version of it, Criterion did a great job. Definitely go get the Criterion Blu-ray. I can't imagine. I'm sure they'll put it out in 4K. 4K. I would love to see what that looks like. It'd just be amazing, because it's just going to keep going. It's going to be one of those films that each time that there's a new version, it's going to get done. I can tell you.
We'll talk about that in another video. I think for Blu-ray Hunter, I think we're doing one at some point about physical media and or streaming as well, and we're gonna do a video on that. But because we have opinions on that for sure. But the biggest problem I'm having is I just heard that LG or one of those companies, has just put out an OLED 8K TV, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, why? Don't do this to us. There's just too
man.
much. Like, space it out like every 10 years or something. Give us some time to like. People haven't. A lot of my friends haven't even gotten 4K players. Are they gonna have to get 8K players coming up and all this stuff and things like streaming is not going to catch up. Like they're already behind on 4K. How are they going to catch up on 8K? Like what are they like? Oh, it's driving me nuts.
That's why physical media is always going to be there. And
I
it's
know, but
always
that's what I'm
invested.
saying. The physical media is going to show up, and they're going to have 8K movies and stuff like that.
It's
And
all right.
it's just too much.
You got it in Blu-ray. Trust me, you're not going to sit there and say, "Oh man, I wish I had this in 8K." You're going to love it. It's going to be fantastic.
That's true. That's true. But some people like me, I do want to, I already invested in 4K. I would love, I know. Like I love it. I love it. Like I mean, you can laugh, but I love it. It's something that is really cool, and I enjoy it. But that means, will I have to go 8K? Well, probably in a few years. But
You're gonna.
until
You
then,
can't
at
resist.
some point, I will. I was lucky to get what I had for as cheap as I have, but right now 8K is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you, if if there's an 8K version of Seven Samurai, I'd be seriously considering because it's that kind of a film.
Wait for like holographs and stuff where they come at you and stuff. Be in your room.
Nice.
Watch the Seven Samurai in your room, like right next to you.
You
While
want,
you're in the
you
middle
want
of
one
it.
of these buns? They'll sell them to you real cheap.
That would be awesome. But we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. But anyway, that's great. We love the Criterion version,
Yeah.
especially since this is called Criterion
We could
Watch.
talk forever about this film. It's one of those films, but bottom line is, if you don't have this in your collection, you need to go out and get it. You need to experience it. It's everything you've heard about this film is right on the money.
I'm not saying that because I'm doing this review, or whatever. If I didn't like the movie, if this movie was something that I didn't like, I would have said it, and
Right.
I would have had my piece, and he would have probably thought I was retarded.
If I thought it was
But-
boring and pretentious, I'd say so too.
Yeah, but it's not. It is so not boring and pretentious.
No.
Maybe the thing that might turn you off are two things: the length and the fact that it's a foreign film and subtitles. A lot of people do not like subtitles these days because their minds can't focus on.
Take some freaking Ritalin and improve yourself and watch a good movie, for God's sakes.
It's if I can watch the movie and understand it and watch it with subtitles and understand what the heck is going on and laugh my butt off at really funny scenes in it, then you can watch it.
That's
because
right.
Trust me, who knows? I've got the worst freaking attention span ever. So. In fact, my attention span right now is going. So we're gonna have to wrap this up. Thank you guys for checking this out. Check us in next month when we have in January. We're gonna have more stuff going.
More stuff.
This is just kind of the end of this year. This is a year
And
kind of thing.
I think I get to
Criterion.
pick the next Criterion Watch, don't I?
Yes, you can.
Ah, okay.
Yes. His turn is next because I picked Seven Samurai, which is kind of surprising considering that's his favorite movie.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
One
but,
of my favorites, in my top 5.
But I have one that I want to do after his next one. So we're gonna try to do maybe once a month, maybe more. Who knows? If we start able to get more stuff going or whatever, we might actually watch. We might do it twice a month. I don't know. It just depends. It depends on all these different projects that we're doing, all these different things.
You gonna pull out your Criterion Neil Breen?
If they made one, that would be. I would.
That
Anyway,
would be Bizarro World, is what it would be.
yeah, right. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. There might be a group that's like Criterion that picks up bad.
Oh,
movies.
Kino Lorber might, just for the hell of it, but I wouldn't bet it. I wouldn't bet on it.
Actually, nobody will, because remember he only sells.
Yeah,
it
I know.
himself.
He only does his own.
Yeah,
That's all right.
he's the Criterion of himself.
In more ways than one.
Sorry, we just went off on a tangent like we always do.
We
so
better cut it.
We better cut it. Cut it. All right.
right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Check us out on Twitter, Facebook,
All that stuff.
Instagram, and I think that's it of those things. But check us out here and find out more. We'll be doing more stuff on social media. We'll be doing more stuff on here on this thing, and subscribe. Let us know what you guys think.
Nom nom nom.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.